Keanu Reeves confronts a rude talk show host. His response leaves the audience speechless. The stage was set. The crowd buzzed with anticipation as the bright studio lights illuminated the glossy floors of the late-night show with Victor Kane. Keanu Reeves, Hollywood's most enigmatic and beloved actor, sat calmly in his seat. His trademark black suit and casual, yet elegant, demeanor made him appear as if he belonged to another era, one where kindness and humility still held weight in a world obsessed with fame and spectacle. Victor Kane, the show's host, was known for his brash humor and relentless questioning. He had made a career out of pushing celebrities to their limits, often at their expense. While some found him amusing, others thought he went too far. Tonight, his sights were set on Keanu. The show had started well enough, with Victor asking the usual questions about Keanu's upcoming film, a highly anticipated sci-fi epic. But then, the atmosphere shifted. "So, Keanu," Victor said, leaning forward with a smirk, "you're known for being this, I don't know, mystical nice guy, right? The Hollywood Zen master. But let's be real here. You've had, what? 3 big franchises? The Matrix, John Wick, and Speed, all action movies. Do you ever worry that maybe you're just, well, a bit of a one-trick pony?" The audience let out a collective murmur. It was an unexpected jab, especially given Keanu's diverse career, from action films to drama, romance, and even animated roles. The tension was palpable. Keanu, however, remained unfazed. He smiled slightly, tilting his head in thought before responding. "Well, Victor," he said, his voice as calm as ever, "that's an interesting perspective. I suppose if someone only watches a few of my films, they might think that. But I like to believe that storytelling is more than just genres. It's about emotion, connection, and giving people a moment to escape or reflect." Victor, sensing he hadn't rattled Keanu, pushed further. "Come on, man. You're in your 50s, still doing stunts, still playing the brooding hero with the deep voice. When do you call it quits? Or is it just too good of a gig to give up?" The audience gasped. A few even booed. It was no secret that Keanu trained harder than actors half his age, and that he took pride in performing his own stunts. Many admired his dedication. Keanu took a deep breath. Instead of retaliating, he leaned forward slightly and looked Victor straight in the eye. "You know, Victor," he said softly, "I don't do this just for the gig. I do it because I love it. I do it because there are stories worth telling. Because movies, good movies, have the power to make people feel something real. And if I can be part of that, even in the smallest way, I'll keep going." The studio went completely silent. Even Victor seemed caught off guard. But Keanu wasn't finished. "And let me ask you something, Victor. You sit here, night after night, talking to actors, musicians, people who create. But when was the last time you created something?" The silence deepened. Victor's smirk faded. "I mean, really created something?" Keanu continued, his voice steady but kind. "Not just criticism, not just jokes at someone else's expense, but something that came from you, something that made someone feel inspired." Victor opened his mouth but found no words. The audience erupted into applause. Some stood. It wasn't just that Keanu had defended himself, it was the way he had done it. Not with anger, not with insults, but with sincerity and wisdom. He had flipped the moment on its head, turning what was meant to be a cheap jab into a lesson in humility. Victor, now visibly uncomfortable, forced a chuckle. "Well, that's certainly something to think about." Keanu simply smiled. "We all have something to offer, Victor. I hope you find yours." As the show wrapped up, the audience remained abuzz. Clips of the exchange would go viral within hours, with fans praising Keanu for his grace and wisdom. But for those who had witnessed it live, it wasn't just a viral moment. It was a masterclass in dignity. And for Victor Kane, that night, he went home and stared at his own reflection a little longer than usual. Perhaps, just perhaps, he had learned something. Keanu Reeves had once again proven why he was not just a Hollywood legend, but a legend in life itself. As the show went to a commercial break, Victor Kane's usually confident smirk had faded. The energy in the studio had completely shifted. The audience, once eager for late-night humor, now buzzed with admiration for Keanu's profound response. Backstage, Victor paced in his dressing room. He had built his career on snappy comebacks and quick-witted insults. But tonight, he had encountered something different, something unsettling. Keanu Reeves hadn't humiliated him. He hadn't fired back with sarcasm or anger. Instead, he had turned the confrontation into a moment of self-reflection. A soft knock on the door interrupted Victor's thoughts. His assistant peeked inside. "Boss, the show's producers want to talk. The audience response has been interesting." Victor ran a hand through his hair. "Define interesting." The assistant hesitated. "Well, they love Keanu. And, social media is exploding. Hashtag Keanu Wisdom is trending. People are saying you were, kind of outmatched." Victor clenched his jaw but took a deep breath. He had to admit it. He had tried to embarrass Keanu, and it had completely backfired. He wasn't used to losing control of the narrative. Meanwhile, Keanu was in his own dressing room, sipping a bottle of water. He had already moved on from the conversation, unbothered. A soft knock came, and his longtime publicist, Sarah, entered. "Keanu, that was incredible," she said, shaking her head in amazement. "You turned that whole situation around. Do you want me to reach out to the press and make sure they don't spin it against you?" Keanu chuckled, shaking his head. "There's no need, Sarah. People will take from it what they will. I just answered honestly." Sarah sighed. "That's just it. You didn't get angry. You didn't put him down. You just asked a question he wasn't ready to answer." Keanu leaned back in his chair. Sometimes, people hide behind criticism because they're afraid to look at themselves. Maybe tonight, he'll do a little soul-searching. Sarah smiled. "You really do see the best in people, don't you?" Keanu shrugged. "I try." Back on stage, the final segment of the show was about to begin. As Keanu walked back under the bright studio lights, the audience erupted into applause, not just polite clapping, but a standing ovation. Victor Kane, still at his desk, forced a smile. "Wow, Keanu. Looks like you really won them over." Keanu simply nodded, offering a small, humble smile. Victor cleared his throat. "Listen, I guess I got a little too comfortable taking jabs tonight. Maybe I should have spent more time appreciating what you bring to the industry instead of trying to poke holes in it." Keanu studied him for a moment before replying. "It's never too late to change how we see things, Victor. We all grow. We all learn." The crowd applauded again. Victor exhaled and nodded. "Well, I can respect that." He turned to the camera. "Ladies and gentlemen, Keanu Reeves." As the show wrapped up, Victor sat in silence, watching as Keanu shook hands with audience members and signed autographs before heading backstage. Something about the encounter had changed him. That night, as he scrolled through the overwhelming praise for Keanu on social media, he came across a comment that stuck with him. Keanu didn't put him down. He lifted him up. That's real strength. For the first time in a long time, Victor Kane felt the weight of his words. And maybe, just maybe, he'd start using them differently. Victor Kane sat alone in his office after the show, staring at the blank notepad in front of him. His usual routine after filming involved reviewing the episode, laughing at his best jokes, and preparing for the next night's guests. But tonight was different. Keanu Reeves had left him with a question he couldn't shake. When was the last time you created something? It was a simple question. Yet, it cut through years of rehearsed punchlines and sarcastic banter like a knife through butter. Victor had made a career out of critiquing, mocking, and occasionally humiliating celebrities on national television. He had built an empire on quick wit and controversy. But creating? That was something he hadn't done in a long time. His assistant, Greg, popped his head into the office. Boss? You okay?" Victor looked up. "Yeah, just thinking." Greg hesitated. "About Keanu?" Victor exhaled, rubbing his temples. "Yeah." Greg chuckled. "Man, the internet's going crazy. People are saying it was the best moment of the show in years." Victor let out a dry laugh. "The best moment of the show was me getting humbled on live television?" Greg shrugged. "Kinda, yeah. But not because you got embarrassed. Because it felt real. You always play the snarky host. But Keanu, he pulled something different out of you. People respect that." Victor sat back in his chair, processing the words. He had spent years making others uncomfortable in their seats, but tonight, he was the one shifting uneasily. Meanwhile, across town, Keanu Reeves sat at a quiet jazz lounge, sipping tea and listening to the soft melody of a saxophone. He enjoyed the solitude, the ability to exist in a space where no one expected anything from him. His phone buzzed with messages from friends and colleagues. Many praised his response to Victor, some even calling it legendary. He smiled, shaking his head. To him, it wasn't legendary. It was just another conversation, an opportunity to turn conflict into something meaningful. A young man, probably in his late 20s, approached his table hesitantly. Mr. Reeves?" Keanu looked up, offering a warm smile. Hey, man. The man, clearly nervous, rubbed the back of his neck. Sorry to bother you. I saw you on the late-night show tonight, and I just wanted to say, that was incredible. I mean, the way you handled that. You didn't lash out, you didn't get angry. You made him think. Keanu nodded, motioning for the young man to take a seat. What's your name? Jake, the man said, sitting down cautiously. Keanu sipped his tea before responding. Well, Jake, here's something I've learned over the years. Anger doesn't change people. Reflection does. Jake's eyes widened. Man, that's deep. Keanu chuckled. Not really. Just something I've picked up. We all have a choice in how we respond. I could have fired back at Victor, humiliated him, made a joke at his expense. But what does that accomplish? It just becomes another internet argument. Another forgettable viral moment. But if you can plant a seed, if you can make someone think, that lasts a lot longer. Jake nodded, processing the words. I needed to hear that, he admitted. I've been dealing with some tough people at work. I keep wanting to fight back, prove them wrong. But maybe I just need to make them think. Keanu smiled. It's worth a try. They clinked their teacups together, and for the rest of the night, they simply talked, two strangers connected by a shared moment of wisdom. Back at Victor Kane's apartment. Victor sat at his desk, staring at a blank document on his laptop. The cursor blinked at him, taunting him. Create something. He thought back to his younger years, before the fame, before the sarcasm, when he actually loved writing. He had once dreamed of being a novelist, of telling meaningful stories instead of tearing others down. But somewhere along the way, he had traded passion for profit, creativity for cruelty. He hesitated for a moment, then placed his fingers on the keyboard. And for the first time in years, he started to write.